Okay. That was an incredible scene, wasn't it? It's one of my favorite scenes in the whole series that they've aired so far.
What is that, season or episode?
It's season 3, episode 2. It's called 2 by 2 is the episode name. And really cut me to the heart. That's one of my favorite sections. And the thing I want to talk about is this moment that they had. I mean, could you imagine what it was like to be with Jesus? To follow him up to that point where you see miracles, you see how he handles crowds, how he handles religious leaders, how just he responds to circumstances, and just being there would be pretty frightening, don't you think? But there had to have been like a general level of comfort knowing Jesus was there with you. Like, I'm here, this is absolutely terrifying, but I'm not in charge. So this is a good deal. And you see their reaction when they find out. Like, it almost, I think they portray it really well in the beginning when it's like he's talking and all of a sudden it's like, healing? Casting out demons? Like, you're sending us out?
Say what?
And it was this moment where it was so far outside of their grid. Like, they had a certain idea, and prior to this moment in the episode, you can see there was a bit of a buildup of like each individual story, and they all had certain things that were pulling on them or leading them a certain direction, and them going out 2 by 2 to whatever town Jesus sent them to was not, like, it wasn't in the cards. Like, it wasn't something that was on the forefront of their mind, like, this is going to be the next thing that Jesus is taking us to. It was, like, just totally outside of it. Like, they may have had a certain concept in their mind of, here's 50 different directions that the day can go right now, and that wasn't one of them. And I want you guys to think of a moment that you've had that was like that. Is there a time you can think of where in your own spiritual journey you had 50 ideas of how you thought your day was going to happen, and then Jesus came and your day was totally different? There was, I'll share a quick story with myself, is there was this moment that I remember, and I was with Phil and Colleen, and I'm pretty sure Javier was there too. And we went out there, and we were there for a reason. It happened to be Colleen's birthday. And that was during the days when we actually celebrated birthdays. We don't do that anymore, for those listening who don't know that. But we were going out, and I remember Phil said, okay, we're gonna go to this really nice restaurant for her birthday. It's about an hour away, hour and a half away. We had a drive, and we pulled up to this place. Lights were off, and place was totally closed. And I remember that moment so clearly, because there was like this sense of like panic, I want to say, that like entered into my heart. And that would seem like a really weird experience for most, I would say. So what, you drive out of your way? I would say a lot of people are thinking, maybe let's just find another restaurant in the area, or we'll find something else to do. But there was something that my spirit man knew about what was coming. And I was totally out of control. All of a sudden, it put me in this place where I'm an hour and a half away from the place that I drove 4 hours to get to. And now we're just in this place. I didn't drive. I rode with somebody else. And it was this moment, and I know why I panicked. Because I was in a season in my own process where I knew God could do absolutely anything. And I knew that He sent us there because it was a decision that we did prayerfully. But at that moment when the restaurant wasn't open, I didn't know why anymore. And I didn't know how long I was going to be there for. And I didn't know what that was going to look like at all. And just to give like a little bit of background, that's coming from a place where I was comfortably the co-pastor of this church, reputation intact, and all of a sudden my whole life just got like turned over. And there was a lot of misinformation released, as you guys know, that caused a lot of loss, a lot of changes. And then in the course of a single day, Phil and Colleen left. Now I'm in charge of the church, and everything is just, there's no knowns. There's no like, here's 50 things of what I think these next couple months are gonna. It's like everything was up in the air, and I knew it was something that Jesus was doing. So mind you, that's a little bit of the background. I had already had like every sense of control that I thought I had was gone. Every sense of how I thought my life was going to turn off, the direction that we were headed, like everything. And then you enter into the factor of like the nudity component of that too. And it was like there's nothing to cling to anymore. So we arrive at this restaurant, lights off, place is closed, and then we just stop, and I remember we decided, okay, well, we feel like the Holy Spirit's calling us to stay at a hotel that's close by. Okay, well, like I don't have a cafe to get back to. I have nowhere that I need to be for any like amount of time, and like you have to understand, like my grid was so peeled open from the Lord. It was like I could just be here from now on. Like maybe I won't get back to Illinois. Like maybe this is where my new ministry is. Maybe I'll be here tonight. Maybe I'll be here 3 weeks. Like it was that, like that unknown. That was just the moment that we were in. And I remember checking into that hotel and being in this place where it's like almost like trauma coming up in my process, because it's like I just really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like I have no idea why we're here. I don't know what we're trying to accomplish. I don't know what He's doing. I don't know why He's doing it. And like there's nothing I can grab a hold of. Like just absolutely nothing. I want to say we were in a place of like, I don't even know, like, how are we going to afford staying in a hotel room? I mean, it was like, there were so many factors that were just completely outside of my grid of what I thought was going to happen in a day. That was one of many experiences that I've had in that way. And I got to believe it was kind of like that for them in this occasion, because they thought they knew where they were headed. But obviously not. And in front of them was going to be facing a whole lot of obstacles. How were they going to be received? How are they going to be treated? You're being told that you're given the authority to heal and cast out demons. But what's that like? Are you going to be good at it? I mean, you got to think some of these. So, like, is there a performance here of like, and how do I do that? Like, what does that look like? I don't know the timeline and how biblically accurate this is, but like you have that moment where Judas like just joined the group in the series at this point, and he's like, "You're sending me out to teach, and I've only heard one message. Like I've only seen you once." And it was a really big leap that I decided to follow you, but now you're sending me out, and I'm going to teach the one message that I just heard. I don't know how that all fits into like the timeline of everything, but the feeling is accurate. I think it's a really, really good description. And I remember moments that we've been through as a group where we were facing things like that. And the whole reason I'm bringing this up, and I thought that picture would really, it's just movies are so powerful to kind of stir something inside of you to create an image. And I think it did, because one of the things we went through recently was we get to a spiritual place in our prayer time, but have a very hard time holding on to it. I mean, it's an easy thing to do, isn't it? I mean, tell me that isn't a struggle that a lot of you guys have on a daily basis, where you may connect with Him, you may get to a spiritual place, but then you get so lost in the task at hand. You get lost in the circumstances, or you get lost in just whatever you got going on, and then maybe you get to that place where you're taking a lunch break and it's like, but Jesus, where were you? You know what? I wasn't really connected to you very much. And the reason I think this section in the movie, this part in the scripture is so important, is because do you think when they got sent out, they were very, very thoughtful about every decision that they made? I know in my story, I was overwhelmingly prayerful. Because when you really don't have an idea where you're headed, you tend to cling to Jesus a little bit more than usual, don't you? And we're trying to get to this place where we're being more spiritual, we're connecting to Him more, we're giving ourselves more over to Him, but there's something that I want every person to take a little bit of inventory with. And think, how much are you going through your day with a preconceived notion of exactly what needs to get done, how it needs to get done, what it's going to look like, how it's going to unfold when you do that? That need, like say you had in that moment. I mean, think of a moment. You guys have all certainly had some occasions like that just totally like unglued you to your core. Doesn't it put you in this place where you're really dependent on Him? I thought it was a really amazing moment. There was someone that I was talking to, and we were going through this very subject. Like, I do my prayer time, I'm setting some alarms on my phone, I'm doing different things, but I keep forgetting to consult him when I go through my day. There's just too many occasions where I get lost in the task, or I get lost in the project or the thing that I'm doing or my circumstances, and I'm not really hearkening to him the way that I should. And then we talked a little bit more, and we brought up a circumstance that they were currently going through. And I asked them, I said, this circumstance here, are you having a hard time keeping sight of what Jesus is doing in this circumstance? Are you like forgetting to consult him in what to do or how to respond to him? And the person right away said, well, no. No. I said, are you struggling? Like, are you having a hard time like taking action on something that maybe God didn't give you grace to take action on? And they said, no. I said, so it's not like this huge fight you're having? You're not like really struggling? You're not forgetting about it? You're not just doing your own thing? You're not responding in a way that you're just like doing exactly what Jesus is wanting you to do in this circumstance? And the person was like, well, like, I guess so. And isn't that kind of weird? Like, you have someone who is having a hard time, like, hearkening to Jesus as they go through their day, but there's one circumstance that they're not having that problem. Isn't it kind of weird? You think it's just like isolated moments or something? Or like, I don't really think it's an event by event circumstance, isn't it? Isn't it normally like either you're like hearkening to connect with him or you're not? And then we talked about this unique circumstance that they weren't struggling at all, and well, it was the one circumstance that they were facing that they had no idea how to deal with. Is that kind of interesting? It was the one circumstance that they just really didn't know how to proceed. So, in moving forward, there weren't 50 paths. There weren't 50 ideas of what this situation should look like. It was one of those, well, Lord, I just really don't know. Like, I just really don't know how to move forward. And when that component was there, that person didn't have to try to hearken, to get a sense of him. They just naturally did. You guys see where I'm going with this a little bit? Try and think of a moment that you've had like my story. I was highly sensitive to where he was leading me and taking me because I just had no idea where we were headed. It put me in a really, really dependent place, and as hard as I tried to engage my intellect to come up with a bunch of scenarios that would make me feel safe, I couldn't come up with any. How many of you think being in a scenario like that would make you shake inside? My circumstance made me shake inside, and my circumstance was I'm at a restaurant that's not open and I don't know where we're going now. their circumstance,
Right.
I didn't have a moment where I thought I might be killed today for what I'm about to do. That never even came into play in my circumstance. But theirs, it wasn't just a possibility. I mean, in that dialogue, Jesus said, this isn't going to happen to you during this trip. I don't think he said those words in the Bible. I'd have to go through it again. Maybe there's some in between the lines thing that they're finding here. But what he did say at the end of the dialogue is a day will come. A day will come where you're going to have to deal with that. So that was a reality for them. It wasn't for me, and it made me shake and tremble. See, this person had a circumstance, and they didn't have a sense of what to do and how to respond. And because of it, they didn't struggle hearkening to Jesus. And it just made me think maybe it would be helpful if you took a step back and said, okay, you know what, I have a hard time keeping my eye on him. I'm trying to be in union with him. I'm trying to get a sense of what he's saying and what he's doing, but I keep forgetting to consult him, or I keep forgetting to pray about those decisions before I act. And then we go through this process where we try and control the behavior. And that's not to say there's not a high level of an importance to being disciplined. Doing things that'll cause you to accomplish your goal, which is to, say, follow him a little bit more. But here, I gave you an example of someone who had a circumstance that required no discipline. It required absolutely no discipline for them to take action and move forward in consulting him. And not only that, when they did get marching orders from Jesus, they didn't struggle with them. They didn't fight themselves. They didn't have a hard time with it because they just really didn't have another option in their mind. They didn't intellectually get to a place where, and this is kind of the point, where they decided they already knew what to do. And I was just thinking a lot about this season that I was in, and there were so many unknowns. There was so much that Jesus was doing that was outside of my concept. We were dealing with some persecution and some just really, really difficult things. And then it makes me think, but how much are we settling into this place in our current lives, in our current jobs, in our current circumstances, thinking that we're really hearkening to him, being sensitive to him, but in reality, we have an agenda. We think we know what's going on, and we think we know what the right thing, and it might happen in that place without words. I promise you. I didn't ask the person this question, but I absolutely promise you that if you asked that person and said, so other than this one circumstance, you're going through your day and you just know everything. You just have it all figured out and you know exactly how to respond. I know that person would say, no, that's not true. There's something that happens underneath the surface that we've already decided, we already know what it's going to look like, and it really closes us off to search for him, to have a sense of him, to open up our mind. like that place that I was in, of like he could do anything. And sometimes I like reminding myself of that moment because I want to be in that place at all times, like all the time. Sometimes what will he have me do right now? He's God. I may have a set idea of what I think my day but he could have me do anything right now. I mean, what if he gives you a word right now and wants you to stand up and finish the message? Would God do something like that? Yeah, but maybe we don't see it as an option, so that one's out. Maybe there's some place he wants you to go and be right now. There's so many. Yeah, maybe. And you have our blessing if it is. Right. Do you guys see what we do? Like we lock in, and like even tonight it's like this is what we do. We all get together, I give a message, or maybe Dana on occasion, and we go through this program but it's like it's all laid out already. Our perception isn't like stretched open in a way. And if it was, we wouldn't have that hard of a time hearkening, because we wouldn't have all these options that we've figured out already. Do you guys see what I'm saying? And we're going about it wrong if we think that we can just get there by discipline. There's this quote. Hold on, let me find it real quick. This is in the volume 1, Rev of Rev. It says, spiritual union is an inward spiritual condition, not just a behavioral conformity.
Wait, what was that?
Spiritual, it's not a scripture. Yeah, it's just a line from the book. Spiritual union is an inward spiritual condition, not just behavioral conformity. So we have to start thinking, is like, what's my condition right now? Like, what is the condition of my mental state, my spiritual state right now? Would we call it spiritual union? Is my mind so open right now? Or do I have it all figured out already? Even if you're not having thoughts, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's not the case. That you don't already have all these preconceived ideas of what it looks like. And then we lock into a certain way of doing things, a certain way of saying things, and then there's not room for him to do something radical. It just kind of blew me away. This person had one area that there was just no struggle whatsoever hearkening to him, having a sense of him, consulting him, patiently waiting for him to respond, and then taking action when he did, like no problem. And it's just simply because that area, that one thing that they just decide, you know what, that's above my pay grade. That area, that is too wonderful for me to understand. But there's a lot more areas that are also too wonderful for us to understand, but we don't look at it that way. We say, I've been here done that. I've gone through it. I know how to handle this. And then we have that neural pathway, that's a well-traveled road that we go down. And now I don't need to hearken because I got autopilot. And that doesn't always result in spiritual union. Doesn't always result in trying to follow Jesus. And what's been really helpful is when I'm trying to really fixate my mind on him, and maybe it's hard for me to get there, I go backwards. And rather than thinking like, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? Or I gotta do all these disciplines in place. They say, Mike, what's number one right now? Because if it was Jesus, this wouldn't be an issue. What's pulling on you right now? What kind of pressures are there? Not just the things that maybe you're actively thinking about right now, but if you were put in a silent, dark room, what kind of things would come up in your head at that moment when you're quiet? When you don't have something right in your face and distracting you. I think it's good for us to remember some of these moments, because sometimes it's really innocent. You just get caught up, and maybe it's even in a God project. Maybe it's something that he was asking you to do in the first place. But you started to, you hear that, Debbie? Maybe just you started to take over a little bit. Maybe you started to do it in your own power. Maybe you got too many steps ahead of him rather than letting him lead you and guide you in the process. You guys see what I'm saying? There's a whole nother level of the agenda that you have that might be beyond even active thoughts that you're having in your mind. So I know when all that was taken away from me, it felt out of control. Made me shake inside. And I'm believing since that moment, I've grown a bit in just letting him lead. Because we should get to a place, don't you think, where we just trust him and we can just let him take us, knowing that he's good, knowing that he loves us. But we have this sin nature that keeps trying to creep up on us and cause us to want to take control, and we got to betray it experientially. And the point isn't, I think that we all need to go back and say, so the point of the message is, Mike's saying I just don't really love him because if I did, I would think about him more often. It's not really the point. The point is, if you're losing track of him, you're having a hard time, look the right direction. You can put disciplines in place, you can take measures, but this is a condition, not just a behavioral conformity. And that's what helps me. When that comes up in my prayer time, I'll stop and just say, okay, what is taking a priority right now over hearkening to you, being sensitive to you, accomplishing your will? Are there things that I just wouldn't do right now? Are there areas that I've closed my heart to that I just wouldn't be willing to do? So much so that even if you told it to me, I just couldn't hear it. Some of them were sitting at that table and they were asked, can you say that again? Can you repeat that one more time? He repeated, and then again, like, can we talk about miracles again? It's like, did they go deaf? Do you think it was a hearing problem that they had? Absolutely not. It was a perception problem. Jesus was bringing them to a place that was just beyond what they conceived was even possible. And sometimes you might not realize it, but you're grasping so hard to be in control. And when you're grasping so hard to be in control and work out every scenario with your intellect and figure out what everybody's thinking and what are the next 10 scenarios that might come up after this one, how can you hearken? Of course you're going to lose sight of him. And if you are, I mean, that's not a difficult thing to figure out. Every single person should be able to look back on their day and say, did you lose sight of him today or did you not? And if you fall in the camp where maybe you lost sight of him a little bit more than you really are happy with, there you'll find an agenda. There you'll find a priority. If you just try and change your behavior without changing your agenda, you're going to find yourself keep failing. It's only helpful to such a degree. You know, we can say as a church we're going to take 6 weeks and try and be active and really engage in our prayer time. But if your agenda isn't to do that, and there's another reason, we can do a routine of doing that 6 weeks at a time, but week 7, you're still not going to do it. And if we're not, again, the point isn't like, okay, we've all discovered Jesus isn't our first love, nice message, let's go home. Because I think there's moments that he is, and there's moments you lose sight of it, and it's a little more realistic. There's a lot of people here who really do love Jesus and have given an awful lot to be in union with him, but still loses sight of him from time to time. So I thought it was an interesting case study, you could say, with this person. How is it that they struggle in every single area except one? And I know it works in my own prayer time. It's first thing I go to when I'm having a hard time really like having that rich sense of him, hearkening to him, being sensitive to where he's leading me. It's just like, okay, cough it up. What's too important to you right now? And then I lay it down. How do I know I laid it down? Because it's not hard to hearken anymore. It's not hard to have a sense of him anymore. It's not hard to do the thing that your conscience is telling you to do anymore. Until that happens, I got to keep going at it. Keep bringing it to the forefront. Keep confessing it. Keep using those disciplines until you break it. There's this one more line I want to read in this book, and I'm going to call it a night here. It says, that doesn't mean just wait around asking him for things you want while assuming God will interrupt the focus of your concerns to tell you what he wants. I highlighted that one because it's a really big deal. Sometimes we think, Jesus, I'm in union with you, and because of that, I'm going to go about my day, and I'm asking you to come and interrupt me when you need me to do something. And that's not a right way to go about your day. And in a way, that's putting it on him, isn't it? Like, I'm going to do my thing, but if you need me, I'm here. You know me. I'll follow you. I'll do whatever you ask me to do. You name it, I'll do it when that moment comes. And if we're falling in that place, then you can tell we have way too many preconceived ideas of what needs to be happening in our day. Because the right way should be using our prayer time to totally clear our mind and keep asking him, Lord, I know last time we did this project, we did it this way. Do you still want to do it that way? Lord, I know last time these kind of events happened, we handled it like this and that turned out really well. You still want to handle it that way? We're not going about life just saying, Lord, you interrupt me. You come just interrupt my day. Come, and hit me with some heavy conviction and I'll do what you say at that moment. It's not really the attitude of someone who's in spiritual union. That person in spiritual union says, Lord, I'm here to live out what you want to accomplish today, so I'm just going to keep looking at you. I'm going to keep trusting you to give me my marching orders. I'm going to find out what it looks like. And you know what? Yeah, it really worked out last time we handled this way, but it's still too wonderful for me. This scenario, it's still too wonderful for me. This project's still too wonderful. Even when I think I'm doing the right thing, evil still results. Even when that's the way you had me do it last time, still too wonderful. I'm going to quiet my soul. I'm going to cut the string of all the different ideas I have floating around my head of how this day is going to end up, and I'm just going to say it's too wonderful. And I'm not going to act until you lead me. You show me where I'm going here. And when that's your number one priority, it won't be that hard. And if you lose sight of it, it's probably going to be because you took over one way or the other, which again, we're going to do. We're not going to get out of our chairs and just all of a sudden do it right tomorrow. But if it's important to you to advance in your union with him, now you have a way to work it backwards. Now you have a tool you can go to and say, you know what, I'm just really not focusing on him, and maybe I need to take a little time to pray and recollect and find out, like, are there some agendas that I'm really pushing that I'm not even letting myself know? Lord, would you reveal that to me? And then do something about it. And you get right back on track real quick. All right, well, I'm going to close with that. Can I just hear a couple comments before we call it a night? Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's really...
You want to do the mic for us?
The part that stuck out to me, there are a lot of parts, because it's so me, is that part of, it's no problem when it's over my pay grade. Because then I know it's not even something I can grasp and take and put under my control, because I don't even know it. You know, it's way out there. So it's so much easier for me to then be in a place to hearken for the Lord. You know, that's a big thing. I mean, you know, going out and doing this, that's something we can be in agreement on. You know, I do everything right. The structure.
We have a fear like this could really go wrong if I do the right. Like I need to really measure twice, cut once on this one.
Exactly, or it's just too big a thing. And you're right. There are so many other circumstances that aren't in my control, but yet I see them as in my control. And once I do that, then there isn't that desire to hearken, because it's like, I've got that. I've got this. Even though I'll still make the stupid mistake or make a wrong decision or do whatever. But I guess it's so much easier to do the big things, where the little things are just too easy to just say, well,
Yeah.
that's a day-to-day thing. That's going to be it. But yet, by doing that, that's most of my days are the two little things. But I've got to be in a place where I see that as something that isn't in my control. I mean, I really don't have control over those little things. I may think I do, but I don't. And because of that, I think, like I said, I like the whole part of, I was just talking about this with somebody, is how we put our days, our lives, our decisions in a box, that can't be, I can't think outside that box. I love that.
I'll follow you, but as long as it's
Right,
it's in
that
there.
part, that one that we went over, the teaching about Peter when he was brought the animals down. It's like, I would never do that, Lord. It's like, no way would I do that. He's like, yeah, but I'm asking you to. And he asked him 3 times. And it's like, the very thing, you're saying no to the very thing that you're trying to be obedient to.
Yeah.
And, we get kind of messed up like that. And there's so many things that I do put in a box that, yeah, I'll do this because that fits into my thing. But anything outside of that, I'm not ready for him to just, bingo,
Right.
it's time.
There was a moment with an anonymous person who asked for help to get something out of the freezer today that was too high for them to reach, and normally I help them with it, but my hands were all full of meat. I was doing some prep, and I just said, "Well, go get the step stool." And all of a sudden the person went like, "What?" Like, I only use that step stool when I clean microwaves. And I could use that in the freezer too. And it was like this mind explosion, of like, there's so many things I could get with this step stool now, because I could use it more than just this one. It was kind of not to say who it was, but there's moments like that it's funny. It's funny because it's like, but that's what I always do. I never use it. I always just do this instead, but it doesn't mean that there's not like something else. There might be another option we haven't conceived of that Jesus knows, even though we've been through this already. We've done this task 100 times, but here's another one. It happens to all of us. I mean, I'm sure we can all think of just like really foolish moments where like you just do something because you've always done it that way. Not because it's the right thing to do, not because it makes sense, but just because that's what you do. And then someone asks you and says, "So why do you do it that way?" Kind of like, well, they have to have a good reason. And then all of a sudden you're like, huh, that's a great question. I have no idea. It causes you to start to think in a way that and we do that with him all the time.
It makes me think of, I don't know, you maybe can help me. There's a animated movie or something that we watched where we probably all have seen it, where the ants are walking in line. They're just marching in line and they come upon a leaf. And like the guy in front says, "Whoa, whoa!" What is it?
The Bug's Life.
Bug's Life, yeah. Or they just say, "Stop! What do we do?" He's like, "I don't know. What do we do?" And then I don't know who came in. Do you remember? Somebody gave him the option.
They panic because they lost the scent, and then some supervisor comes in and says, "We have people trained to handle this situation."
Exactly. And somebody tells him or something, we could go around. He's like, "Oh, yeah, we could do that." And they start going around. But it's so classic. It's
Yeah.
so we get locked into that's the path we take. And if we don't go there, it's like, I don't know how. There's somebody else that's unnamed who, if you can't get there with a road, if it's stopped, is, well, how do I get home? I go, just happened the other night. I go, because we'll just go to the next road and take a right. Yeah, but where's that going to go? Same where it always did when we took that road over to that road, and then we'll come back out. Where's that come out? I go, right there where it always comes out on the creek. She's like, oh, if you wouldn't have been in here, I wouldn't have known what to do. Again, I don't know who it was, but you
Right.
know, it's just we get locked if I don't get a certain
Just
direction, a certain
it's
way.
autopilot.
You can't get outside of that sometimes, and it just we get stuck in our ways and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Okay, I have two things. I turned it on. Okay. I have two things. First thing is kind of going off what Dana said. I used to get like really frustrated whenever I would try to do something a certain way and it would work that way in the past. And then like, I don't know, even when it comes to like prayer time or something, like I would do things a certain way and it would work. And then it's like I'm in a new situation or something and it's like I can't do it that way anymore. And so it's like I think part of me sometimes has gotten frustrated, like, well, this always worked before, and it's like I guess I can see how I do put God in a box in that way, because what do I expect? It's always going to be the same every day, and I'm always going to do this thing, and it's like God's like, I want to, go on an adventure with you. I want to like, do like don't not have everything be the same all the time. And another thing I thought of was something Phil told me one time.
I just want to say with that, if we're limiting God to use us in only the ways we understand how we can be used, we're really putting a huge, we're really making it difficult for us to do much of anything. It's the whole point is he's given us a new spirit and he wants to do some supernatural things through our lives. And if we're just locked into the things that were like already our idea in the first place, we're so minimizing our ministry and the kind of effect that it can have. And I think that's really important, where you end up just serving God by like doing your good deed, or helping someone, or those are good things that I know obviously Jesus honors, and thank God for all the people in the world who really do serve in that way. But then there's a spiritual union where it's like, no, when someone meets me, like I want them to meet Jesus. Like I've had enough encounters with him from other people who were being his body where it changed my life because they were Jesus to me. They didn't do the thing that made sense to me. They did the thing that Jesus wanted to do to me. And I want to be that to somebody else. And that's just like the richest experience in the world, when God can use us in that way and we can step outside of that box and find out, like, what does it really look like? And then you have that moment where it's like, I'm here. Yeah, it might be using my body to talk to this person, but I'm not here. This is Jesus. And like you get in touch with his love for that person, or just how deep and penetrating his words are, and it's like that spiritual union. And we really make it difficult for that to come out when we have all those preconceived ideas of what it's going to look like. So go ahead.
The second thing, it's not a part of it, but I think that it's a lot better of a life too, like what you just said. It's a lot better to just be Jesus' body rather than like I have to do this, 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 this. And it's like, okay, how is that different than the Pharisees? How is that
Right.
different than just like a religious spirit? And there's a song that I've been really liking lately that kind of goes with it. It's called Make Room. And in the song, it's like, I want to make room for you. I want to like let go of what I think or what I think this should look like, or my like when I'm driving in the car and I'm going to go somewhere that might be challenging for me or something like that. And I have to like prepare myself and I have to like know exactly what I'm going to say. And it's like, well, maybe if I just spend time with Jesus in the car instead of figuring out like, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? Maybe then like I won't be nervous. I won't be like freaking out. I'll just be close to Jesus. And then when that situation comes, it might be easy, might be hard, but it doesn't really matter because I'm with Jesus and I'm safe with him. So,
Right. It's a miserable life to try and be in control all the time because we're just never going to attain it. It just,
They'll practice.
it's an
That finish line?
yeah, it's an impossible
Wait a
task.
Stop. I don't want to
Yeah. All right. Any other comments before we close in prayer? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to read part of Phil's prayer that I think I always liked. It says, I want to denounce any interest in or any exploring of my own will, my own desires, my own feelings, my own agenda, or even my own understanding, so I may create room in my heart for yours to enter in.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we are always on our own agenda, our own, like, this is what we're going to do, he can't even, and he won't do that because he respects us. He's not going to take over. And when he suggests something, we're so loud with our own agenda that we can't even comprehend
Yeah.
that, wait a minute, he might be telling me something.
Right.
And so, you know, it is so true. Like, when we go through the day, are we willing to just give up control of what we think that day is going to be?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Totally. Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna close in prayer here. Lord, you are the center. You're the creator. Everything revolves around you. It does not revolve around us. It's just simply false to the truth to think that we can exert a control over our lives or the lives around us. And yet we do it so often, every day. You've given us no reason to. You're always faithful, you're always trustworthy. So right now we just take a moment and just let go of our agendas, our own understanding, all the preconceived notions that we have of how something's supposed to turn out. And we yield to you and your plan for our lives. And pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.